Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Magicians Without Borders Conversation. And boy, do we have a show for you today. So, as always, welcome, Tom Verner. How are you?
I'm just fine, Carlos. How are you?
Good, Tom. So nice to have you here. I'm going to say hi to some people on the stream. So, hey, Diego. Hey, Mario. So nice of you to join us. So, Tom, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. We have had this 5 days or 6 days ago. We had 6 inches of snow,
Wow.
and then this thing happened. The weather just got unbelievably beautiful. It's been in the 70s. All the snow is melted. The sun is. It's just been this amazing spell of beautiful, beautiful weather. So I'm
So
feeling great.
nice.
I'm feeling great. Uh,
That sounds amazing, Tom. I just wanted to say that it's awesome to connect with you as every week, even though we're so far apart. This
yeah,
week's we've had a lot of cold in Colombia. That's why I'm wearing a little hat.
yeah.
In Bogota, it's been rainy as most of days in Bogota. And so last time we were here, we talked with Kyle and his adventures in Brazil,
Yeah,
right? And how somebody that you've never met in person had a wonderful year in Brazil. He was there actually for a Fulbright scholarship, and he ended up telling us that his best experience of that year abroad was running our program.
that was such a marvelous moment when he said that. And he absolutely genuinely meant it. I
Mhm.
mean, I just know from, the pictures and the way he talked about it, that was the high point of his Fulbright year in Brazil.
I
Fantastic.
agree. That's so cool. So today we have a guest that we're going to introduce in a little while
Yeah.
who also went through the same thing. I mean, thanks to him, that's why we wanted to recreate or replicate his journey with Kyle, and I think we did successfully. But before we introduce Ryan Bart, before we bring him on, do you remember how you met him?
Yeah, we have talked about this a number of times during these 12, which is a magic number in a lot of places, like um, anyhow, I won't go there. But I had this old friend who was a hypnotist
Hmm.
and a chiropractor, and he became a magician.
Hmm.
And he lived here in Vermont. His name is Steve Taubman. And he had this roommate back in college, like 20 years earlier, named
Hmm.
Michael Bart.
Hmm.
And Steve told Michael about Magicians Without Borders. And
Hmm.
Michael had a son who was a magician named Ryan. And so Ryan called me.
Hmm.
And I don't know, at that point, I was traveling 6 months of the year. I didn't know where I was, whether I was in Bangladesh or Sudan or Ukraine or Ethiopia. And I, he's reminded me a couple of times that I never returned his call or or his email. Um, and I think there may have been two or three of them. He's a very persistent, serious person. He was an undergraduate at Gonzaga University, a fantastic Jesuit university. But finally, his persistence paid off, and we ended up connecting, and we'll fill in the other parts of the
The
story
other blank.
when he gets here. But
Uh,
it was really one of those, what my wife Janet and I, who's going to come for a moment and just say hello to Ryan.
Oh, yes.
We've met Ryan many times in Colombia, in India, in Vermont, so anyhow, I forget. Oh, my wife and I call these angel moments, that somehow these connections happen in Magicians Without Borders. And with Ryan, it was really a wonderful, mysterious one, that this roommate of Ryan's father connected us, unbeknownst, anyhow. So
cool. So cool. And like you said, this Ryan has been part of so many projects in so many different places in so many different years that I'm pretty sure we're not going to be able to cover all of that in this episode. So we're going to try and make sure that he comes back so we can discuss all of this things that he has been involved in, because he has been involved in starting the program here in Bogota, Colombia. Then he went to El Salvador to help start the other program in El Salvador. Then he went to India. He's done stuff over there, as you said, in the US. So he's been so involved in so many things. He actually has done 3 TEDx Talks about our program. So it's just wonderful. So I can't wait to bring him in. So let's do just that. So let's all welcome Ryan. How are you, Ryan?
Hello. So happy to be here with you, gentlemen. Oh my gosh.
So good. So good
awesome.
to see your face. It's good.
Oh, yes.
Ryan, likewise.
So cool that you're here, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know all the appreciation that we have for you, and our friendship goes a long while, and it's just so cool whenever we get a chance to speak. So I'm very honored that you're here.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here.
Okay, so Ryan, before we get into Magicians Without Borders and all your adventures, can you tell us first how you got into magic, right? And then how do you recall what Tom said about you getting in touch with Magicians Without Borders?
Absolutely. I loved hearing Tom's version of the story. Or I shouldn't say version, his experience of it.
It may not be completely true. I don't know.
No, I think it is. I think you nailed it on the head. I hadn't realized I had reminded you multiple times, but now that you say that, yeah.
I think you did, but I'm not sure.
I trust your input on that one, Tom.
So how did you get into magic?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of young children, magic became a hobby of mine when I was a young boy. And then I never stopped. And I think one of the big factors in that you kind of alluded to when you were telling about how we met is Steve Taubman, who is my dad's good childhood friend. And he taught me my first couple tricks, gave me a couple magic books, and was definitely a huge influence in my development of this skill. And then I think my parents played a huge role as well. They saw something in me that I probably didn't see in myself and pushed me to the point of sometimes discomfort, really challenged me to take my magic to the next level. And, in high school, I began doing shows for hire and donating shows to different organizations. And from there, it really took off. I think one of the interesting things about being a magician that I want to say, as an adolescent and coming of age, you're learning about your own identity in the world, and then learning to become a magician is an exciting thing. And you can go to any sort of training program and become a car mechanic or a doctor or whatever it may be, but there's really no like formal degree or certification to say you're a magician. And so that transition to actually saying I'm a magician was a big deal for me in adolescence. And then
you learned it in the really old-fashioned way, an older magician introducing you and teaching you and even giving you books. That's just fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so thankful for my mentor, Steve. And then following him, I had another mentor named Carrie Durgan, who was more local, where I was living in Washington State, who worked with me intensively for about a year when I was about 15 years old. And he really helped take my magic to the next level with that regular, frequent practice and teaching. So definitely thankful to him as well.
Was
So
there
cool.
a chapter of the SAM or a ring of the IBM or anything near you?
There was. It was a ways away. I grew up about an hour and a half north of Seattle, close to a town called Bellingham. And so there's a ring in the Seattle-Tacoma area. I never really made it there, unfortunately. I should have. But there are a couple other young local magicians that we connected with and sometimes would jam.
Yeah.
But that was fairly infrequent.
So good, so good. So Ryan, last week we talked with Kyle, right, and how he did all his Fulbright research and he applied for the scholarship and he ended up in Brazil. So, and that's how or why he got in touch with Magicians Without Borders. So I want you to take us through that, right? So like, yeah, you're a magician. You just share that you're learning magic. You're enjoying it. You're about to go on a year abroad, right? And how does that actually came together? You getting a Fulbright scholarship, going to Colombia, why Colombia, and then incorporating Magicians Without Borders to it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's going to be a long-winded response. I'll do my best to
Go
condense
ahead.
it.
Yeah.
So when I was at Gonzaga in my undergraduate, that was across 400 miles from where I grew up, and so I was trying to figure out how to maintain my identity as a magician as well as my skill set. And I was really focused on my academics because I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was trying to find a way to integrate magic and medicine. And that's when I decided to volunteer at the Children's Hospital in Spokane. And so I began to go there on a weekly basis throughout my undergraduate time at Gonzaga, so for 4 years. And there, I really learned about the healing potential of magic. I would often have mothers pull me aside and thank me for coming to perform for their children who were very sick. And just the amount of joy that it brought them was very gratifying to see that among their families as well. And so from that, I was inspired to become part of something bigger than just a one-man operation going to the hospital. So I started looking around the internet to see if there were any organizations that did something similar to what I was doing so I could learn and be a part of it. And that was when I came across Magicians Without Borders. And that was through a web search, actually. So a little aside from, I guess, what Tom shared was actually, I initially stumbled upon your website just randomly. And then after which I had mentioned it to my father, who then mentioned it to his friend. And that's when it turned out that we had a mutual connection. So just really, I believe my involvement in Magicians Without Borders is more than serendipitous. I believe that it's a series of steps of divine intervention. And it's just been an incredible adventure. So kind of looping back to your question, Carlos, as I was ending my time at Gonzaga and making decisions for my next steps, I really realized that I did not want to go straight into my medical training because once you commit to something as big as that, that's kind of what you're doing for the rest of your life. And while that was something I definitely wanted to do, I felt like there was more in the world that I wanted to see before committing to that. And so that's when I, through a lot of discernment, it was a really big decision at the time, but I decided to take 2 years between undergrad and starting medical school. And that was very calculated. I've always been a bit of a calculated person. And so at that point, I started looking for opportunities to fill my time in the couple years between those two chapters. And for me, the most important part was that it would entail traveling or spending an extended period of time in another country. And that was when I came upon the opportunity to apply for a Fulbright. And so it was a long application process, but once I received the scholarship, I was really excited to incorporate my magic into my time living in Colombia. And so why Colombia? I think it was multifactorial. There were basically, with the Fulbright, there are certain countries that you apply country specific. And so I applied for my Fulbright in Colombia. And It was a combination. I had a good buddy at college who was Colombian, so hearing about his time going to visit his family in Colombia, I think had some influence on that. And I've always been fascinated by Colombia's history and just the resilience of the people. And then, to be honest, it was also partly a numbers game. So the Fulbright Columbia had a good number of scholarships relative to other countries. I knew I wanted to go somewhere in Latin America to continue to develop my Spanish. So it's kind of that combination that led me to Colombia.
So you had gone to Colombia to visit your friend's family before you went there on the Fulbright?
I had never been before. No, my first time stepping foot in Colombia was arriving there first day for that scholarship.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you said you had visited with your friend's family. Okay.
Oh, I heard his stories of visiting family.
Yeah.
Sorry if that was confusing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get into Fulbright. You're heading to Colombia, right? And as we've learned, Fulbright has the option or the suggestion of trying to do something social while you're there, or a side project, right? And you thought, yeah, Magicians Without Borders. But how did it become from that, to then being in South America in the slums of Bogota doing Magicians Without Borders chapter?
Again, series of divine intervention. I mean, the story just continues to unfold from there. So once I was notified that I got the scholarship, I was obviously super excited. And yeah, so as you probably heard from Kyle last week, the scholarship entails generally teaching English at a university. And then the other half of the time, it's expected that you'll contribute some sort of project for social good. And so clearly, as I had learned about performing magic at the hospital, that was going to be the focus of my project. And it was at that point that Tom and I were able to connect and really start brainstorming about creating a program in Colombia. And so, yeah, fast forward, Tom and I had a number of conversations for planning. I even traveled out. He'd never met me before, and he and his wife, lovely Janet, they were so gracious and took me into their home for a week so we could get to know each other and plan our program. And I think that really laid a really special friendship, most importantly. I'm so grateful for you, Tom, and you're a mentor and a friend. And I'm just so thankful for what we've done together and what we've experienced, and I look forward to more.
Part of that divine intervention, I don't remember exactly when it happened, but you and I were on a long telephone conversation, as I recall. You can fill in. And you said you were going to Colombia, and so we hung up, and I went out to the mailbox. I walked out my driveway to the mailbox, opened up the mailbox, and took out that month's issue of Linking Ring. And there was this magician on the cover, Gustavo Lorgia. And I read the whole article walking up my driveway. The last two paragraphs, as I recall, Gustavo says something like, "It's wonderful to be a famous magician, to be part of a dynasty of magicians. But what I'd really like to figure out is how can I use my magic to help the people of Colombia?" And I thought, oh my God, that's exactly what Ryan is going to do. So I contacted, his email was in there, and I contacted him. And within a couple hours, I got a response from his daughter, who was in New York City studying filmmaking at the New School for Social Research. And she said, I said, "Do you know of any foundations?" And she said, "Yeah, my good friend works at a place called Bella Flor."
Oh, so cool.
So, I mean, that is so weird. Wow. Amazing. Anyhow, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just had to give a concrete example.
That story, that story is so cool. Like every time I hear it, it's like the chances of that happening, of you going to Colombia that week. I mean, contacting Tom that you're going to be in Colombia that week, he getting the linking rings. Gustavo's daughter, Maria Paula, knowing somebody in Bella Flor, that wonderful little foundation that we work with. I mean, it's just so many good coincidences.
Yeah,
It's just amazing.
Yeah, unbelievable. Thanks. No, thank you, Tom, for sharing that. It's so awesome
so cool
to relive that connection. I may not be completely accurate on this, but for some reason I believe it was like immediately after our first phone conversation was when you got that article from me. I
think
could be wrong, but it was right after we had initially connected.
And you were going to Colombia? You knew you were going to Colombia?
At that time I did, yeah.
Right.
And then his quickness to respond and connect us to Maria Paula, who then, just unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
And I went down and had dinner with her in Brooklyn.
Right.
Yeah,
I
with
do recall
Michael Muldoon and I at a beautiful Peruvian restaurant in Williamsburg. Yeah.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah.
So cool. So Ryan, you were ready. You were going to Colombia. You were coming to Bogota. You knew that. You knew Magicians Without Borders. You prepared for that, right? But you had all that in your head, right? What was it like, or what were your expectations, right? And then how were they compared to the reality of being in Colombia, being in Bogota, and going to Bella Flor? Because for people that don't know, Bella Flor it's in a neighborhood called Paradise, inside of one of the biggest slums in South America. So it's not people that come to Bogota or Colombia, they don't usually go there. So how was it? Expectations versus reality.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll never forget that first day riding that bus to Bella Flor. That was an adventure. I was just, definitely a crisis of faith moment where I was like, what the heck did I get myself into? I think it was really good to feel uncomfortable in my own skin, especially considering everything that's going on in our country right now. But it was the first time that I really felt that. And I think I felt that numerous times, afterwards in India. But that first time was definitely a shell shock.
And that's that's right. Quite after you get off, what's it called? The millennial or something?
Transmillennial.
Transmillennial. And then you take that other bus up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
absolutely. So leading up to that, or go ahead, Carlos, if you're going.
No, yeah, it's just a big windy road, and it's just you see the scenery changing, the houses changing, the pavement changing, everything changes.
Yeah, and I remember leading up to that bus ride, I had told numerous people, affiliated with where I was teaching or just who I had met, that I was going to start this program there, and they just, they were locals, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. Like, you're going to go up there? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, let's go. And then I kind of understood their questions as soon as I hopped on that second bus that Tom and Carlos were describing. It's about an hour from that transfer station, and it just changes moment to moment as you climb up the hills, and you see the city getting smaller and smaller as you look down, and it's just definitely very different from what Bogota is as you go up to Paraíso. And I remember leading up to that bus ride as well, one of the Bella Flor volunteers was explaining to me in Spanish, and this was my first week there. So still kind of getting a hold of the language, and each Spanish-speaking country has its own colloquialisms. But writing down the directions in my little notebook, trying to understand like where I had to get off that second bus, and
which is
just
so
looking
confusing.
every corner. Yeah, it is. Fortunately, I found somebody was waiting for me at the stop and kind of weighed me down, and I stood out, and then they walked me to Bella Flor that first day. And I'll always remember that bus ride, but most importantly, I'll remember meeting our students for the first time. And just
so cool.
The excitement. Also, I was pretty nervous trying to teach something like magic in a language other than my own. And also, like, how do I get them to buy in that this is something they want to commit to? Because it obviously to learn magic takes a lot more than just a 2-hour class twice a week. So just really building that trust. I always told them that this isn't just a class, like we're family, and like I'm here for you, and I want to help you in any way I can, whether that be with magic or something else. But we need to really grow that trust with one another. And I think we did that.
Oh, I think you definitely did that. The kids still remember you. Actually, there's one of them right there. Tamara is saying hello. She's been here with us. And Tamara is just, she was with us or with you from the beginning. So I just want to quickly share that picture of you right here. That's you and Tom teaching, and that's Tamara right there. That's Tamara and Jefferson and Anderson and Jason, and this is Edwin, and this is Tatiana. And since then, they were so young. Wow. Yeah. So and I think what you said is true. Like right now, they do feel that our Magicians Without Borders staff and people that are with us are an extension of their family. And speaking about family, look who's joining us. Janet, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Janet. Oh my gosh. How are you?
I'm well, and you are too. I can see that. You look great.
Right back at you. Do you both have matching glasses? I love that.
Yeah, we do. In India.
Those are beautiful.
I got mine first.
The Colombia Causeway.
Those are awesome.
In Colombia. Yeah. In southern.
Oh, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So are you all live now?
Yeah.
Yes, Janet. That's fine, Janet. We're having a conversation, and you're more than welcome to join.
Part of it. That's what it says. You're in the show.
We're in the show. Yes.
Live
Actually, someone's saying hello. His name or her name is Somya Banerjee. He or she is saying hello, Tom.
Oh, my
Soumya.
goodness. Yeah, from India.
Yeah, you can say hello back, and they're listening.
Hi, Soumya.
Soumya.
Hello.
I was thinking about you, Soumya, around the election. So we'll have to talk. All right.
We can't
Oh,
hear
my
Soumya.
goodness. We can't hear him, but say hello to Pretty. Say hello to Pretty for me. Okay.
And from me as well.
All right.
Okay.
So cool.
So
So
we're
cool.
okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye, Janet.
Janet.
Thanks for popping in.
Thanks for saying hi. I'd love to hear Janet's experience, witnessing this unfold. I don't know.
Next
Oh,
week.
Yes.
Next week.
Next week,
Oh,
we're going
okay.
to do a whole Janet episode. Yes.
Nice.
With
Awesome.
Tom.
With Tom, of course, but you're the main subject, Janet. So, so yeah, we were talking about family and how it became, a reality, and I just want to bring this right now up. This is a picture of you and I, and
Yes.
from what I remember, this
Yes.
was one of the first times we've met.
Yes.
Right? Like we've right away, as soon as you started teaching, right? We got in touch.
Which we need to tell that story, because that's a huge pivotal moment to everything that's unfolded.
And
I
it's like 7 years ago, right? 8 years? What is it?
this is in 2012.
Yeah, 8
right?
years ago. Yeah, 8 years
ago. Okay, just for everybody, this is 8 years ago. Yeah.
8 years ago, I look completely younger, and so does Ryan a little bit.
We're getting old.
Oh yeah, I have like twice the forehead now. And but I just wanted to share this because it was pretty cool that we got in touch real fast, right? We'll tell that story. But as soon as we got in touch, this happened. Do you remember where we're at, Ryan?
I do, absolutely. And this was going to be one of my highlights from the year.
Yeah. So if you want to share it, share that, or you want to tell the story of how we met first.
Let's tell the story of how we met, and then maybe if you're willing, you can share about this story. I don't know if you want. I don't
Awesome.
Know. How are you prefer? Cool.
Tell us how we met. Tell us how we met.
Actually, maybe it's best because really it was your experience that led to us meeting. So maybe it's better if it comes from you. I don't know. I'm happy to tell it as well.
Go ahead, because I do have some lagoons. How do you say that? Some blanks. Like I go blank at places, right? Like
sure.
I think
I mean,
between the two of you, we'll get the whole.
We'll tell it together.
Exactly, because we
I
need
like it.
to figure out how we met, because I'm having trouble. So I'll tell my part, okay? So from my point of view is that I was, I led an organization here. It was, the project was called Connecting Smiles at the time, and I had recently been invited to be in a magic conference here in Colombia, and I was doing a theater show, a magic theater show in a big theater, and I was, of course, good friends with Gustavo, and I don't remember the first time that I heard about Ryan teaching magic from Gustavo or the magic community. But what I
can
remember,
fill that in. I remember.
Okay, but I remember the first time I went, I need to contact this guy, because I was in Paraíso doing a show, right? Doing a magic show.
Okay.
Right? For
I think it was at a camp, right?
Probably was a camp, yeah. But like I was doing a show, like hundreds of shows that we've done, right, in these places where magic is not accessible. And then one of the kids says, "Hey, can you give me a deck of cards?" And I'm like, like any kid, you're like, "Okay, yeah, sure, go," right? And the kid does a magic trick, right, with a deck of cards. That's the basic plot of a magic trick with cards. Hey, pick a card, and then he finds my card. I give the card back, he shuffles, and he finds the card. But the way he did that, right, and keep in mind, it's 2012, so even though YouTube was there, it was not big. Like people were, especially kids from the slums, were not learning magic through YouTube by this time, especially in the slums of South America. So the kid did a trick that I knew it had to be taught by a magician. And I'm like, where did you learn that, right? And the guy says in Spanish, right? He says, "No, hay un gringo que me está enseñando magia."
I love that so much.
So what that means in English is that gringo, is the word that Latin Americans most of Latin America refer to people from the US, right? And he says, a gringo is teaching me magic at my foundation. I'm like, what, who, what, where, right? And then I said, I need to get in touch with him. And I'm pretty sure that I got in touch with you or send you a message or something like that day. And after that day, then we said, hey, let's set something up. And I do think that picture is the first time that we saw each other face to face, but I don't know.
That I love that story so much, because again, divine intervention, like how does that happen, right?
Yes, I know.
The chances that boy Andres was at your show, unbelievable. And so I think that picture might be the second time we met, because I think we had, if I remember correctly, we met up for lunch one day to talk about things, and then we talked about that event. But anyhow,
do you think I went and met the kids before this?
No, that was your first time meeting the kids.
I mean,
I believe.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't remember.
But,
I really don't remember. But I remember what it's happening there. So you want to get into that story?
Yeah, absolutely. And so from my experience, I remember one day I just got a call from a random number. And it was this guy who said his name was Carlos and that he's a magician and met one of my students and wanted to be a part of it. And this was probably a month or two into my year in Colombia. And so I think I want to step backwards just for a moment to highlight this, because I think it's an important point, is that one of my biggest fears about going and starting this program on behalf of Magicians Without Borders was sustainability. How, like in my head, how can I make this sustainable? Because I think, as foreigners, sometimes we can do more harm than good, even with good intentions. If we go somewhere, offer a service, but we're only there for a finite amount of time, and then we just pick up and go, because the people that we connect with there, we impact them, and if they start getting used to the services that are provided and then we just leave, well, that cannot be the best sometimes. And so that was a big fear I had. And so my main motive in my head, once we kind of started getting going with the program, and before that was my goal, was to find a way to make this sustainable beyond my year. And so to get that phone call from this guy named Carlos, I just saw like this whole program just evolving and blossoming. And before I had even put that like intention to make it happen, it just happened and fell into my lap.
Yeah.
Literally from the sky. So that was just like one of the best phone calls I've ever received. And now Carlos is one of my best friends. And so it's pretty amazing.
Carlos, numerous times. Ryan did many wonderful things in Colombia, and teaching the kids and doing all the great things you did. But the best thing he did, connecting Carlos to Magicians Without Borders. For
100%.
The you just said, and 1,000 other reasons.
100%.
And I remember when that happened. Okay, to bring it back a little bit. So I had been doing shows like the ones we do, right? Going to the slums, going to faraway places inside Colombia. I grabbed a backpack and went all through Colombia doing shows. We did 400 shows in different places that don't get magic. Me and some other volunteers. But when I went to Paraíso, right? I wanted to try and do something a little bit deeper. Deeper meaning that our impact when we do shows, we know it's a great impact, but we know it stays there. Exactly what Ryan was saying, right? We go there, we're there for a little while, and then we leave, right? And I was researching how to do a long-term program with magic. And actually, there was only 2 organizations in the world that were doing that at that time with long-term, right? The College of Magic in Cape Town, South Africa, and Magicians Without Borders, who had a program in El Salvador and in India. And I was like, I need to get in touch with these guys. But that was on the back of my mind when I saw this kid, Andres, right? And he does this trick for me, right? And when he says, there's a gringo that's teaching me in my foundation, I'm like, this has to be Magicians Without Borders. I mean, there's no way that I've been reading about this, that I wanted to do this, and that this is not Magicians Without Borders. It has to be Magicians Without Borders. And when I give you a call, and it's like, I would probably sound like a fan talking to a rock star, like, hey, dude, you're Magicians Without Borders. Please tell me that you are. Yes. Oh, please let me meet you. Please let me get in touch with you. Please let me do that with you. Do you have any recollections of how that talk went?
Yeah, I mean, you were super enthusiastic, and I was mutually enthusiastic. I think, being a gringo in South America, I probably had some degree of skepticism initially, just a healthy level of skepticism, just because you stand out and a lot of people come to you, and sometimes they come to you for less than altruistic reasons. But as our conversation unfolded, and then after we met, like after meeting face to face, I'm like, okay, this guy's the real deal. Like his heart, his passion is there, and then the rest is history. But I think I was eager to meet you to see if what you were saying was truly who you were, and it absolutely was. And I was so thankful that was the case.
Oh, that was so cool. So, I mean, we could just talk for hours about this. Go ahead, Tom.
Earlier in our conversation tonight, you talked about the connection between magic and adolescence and the way in which that really helped you coming into your life in a strong way at that point of your development. And you were teaching a group of adolescents there in Paraiso. Is it okay if this
Go
question?
ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you think that impacted you? Maybe you could say even a little more about that. And then how you think magic, affected that group of kids. And they've gone on now, 8 years, some of them are studying.
I think that question could be an hour-long conversation.
I was thinking that very thing. I know we only have 15 minutes left. And
no, that's such an important.
Let's open it up.
I think that question is at the core of what we do, so I appreciate you asking it. So for me, what it meant for me was magic helped give me a lot of confidence, both in myself and what I'm capable of. And I owe a lot of that to my parents, like I said, for challenging me to really pursue it. And I think beyond that, like once I kind of moved into later high school and early college, I started learning about the healing potential of magic. Tom, you taught me on this Houdini quote that we use a lot, and it's at the core of what we do. But, in certain circumstances, magic not only entertains and amuses, but has a power to awaken hope that the impossible is possible. And that was my experience volunteering at the hospital. And so initially it taught me confidence, and later it taught me about something much bigger than myself. And that with some grit and perseverance and learning an amazing skill such as magic, the amount of goodness you can bring to others is really gratifying. Mm-hmm. And then to see that ripple effect multiple times over is that much richer. And so that's what it's meant for me. And that's what I really tried to instill, that sense of purpose among our students. And so I think one of the, as we started to build our repertoires with our students early in my year of classes in Colombia, and we started to get to know each other better, I, would add in that philosophy whenever and wherever I could. And I think they really took to it. And I think when it became real for them, this is probably one of the highlights from my year, was taking our students to a local hospital in their neighborhood, probably like a 15-minute drive from them. It was called Vista Hermosa. And we would go there once a week and perform magic for patients in the waiting rooms. There was always long lines, or sometimes we'd even go to patient rooms. And I think it was there that the children really learned about the healing potential of magic. And when they saw that come to life, it was very powerful.
Pictures of that, Carlos, at that hospital?
Yes, let me find them real quick.
That was such a wonderful combination that you did with the kids, teaching them and then taking them there and performing. And they really got a firsthand experience of what magic can do for people in difficult situations, like being
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've seen them continue to do that, which just fills up my heart,
Yeah. We don't have a picture of the kids, but we have pictures of Ryan, and he's watching the kids perform at the hospital. This is the waiting room of the hospitals. And there you are, Tom, holding one of the little kids that's waiting in line at the hospital.
Oh my
God. Where's Ryan?
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh.
There's bits of Paraiso out the window there.
Yeah.
Right there. And they're the kids.
So I think one of my highlights, going back to that, was seeing that moment of kind of light bulb for the kids performing, like, wow, like we're really helping these people who are in a time of need. And that, I remember one particular day when Tom and Janet were visiting. It was myself, Tom, Janet, our students, and then I had a buddy through my program who was a juggler who joined us several times, and his name was Joe Willens, and that was a lot of fun.
That was so cool. So I want to get to this moment because, as I said, we can.
Yeah.
I mean, with you, we can definitely keep doing this. I hope we can have another chance to do this because there's so many things. So get to this story. Where are we at, and what are you about to do?
Yeah. So this was probably 2-3 months in. Soon, I think we had met once or twice before this picture was taken, but this was outside of a major theater. And so Gustavo Lorgia annually puts on a show called Ilusión, where he brings famous magicians and performers from all over the world to perform several shows in Bogota. And so this show just happened to be at that time. And so Carlos also knows Gustavo, and I had established, we had met a couple times prior to this. But we pitched the idea, it was Carlos's idea, pitched the idea that, hey, during the show, maybe, after the intermission, maybe one of our students could come and do a trick on the big stage. And he agreed. So cool. And I mean, that was another one of those light bulb moments. I mean, I think these kids were, super early in their studies of magic. And so I think they did the ball and face, which is, from a magic standpoint, a really simple trick. But again, the key is not necessarily how the trick works or how simple it is, but how you perform it. So we worked a lot on their performance of it, and they did a great job. And I think getting them backstage and seeing the performers that they had seen on the big stage, seeing them behind the scenes was a really big deal for them. And then when the spotlight was on them, it was amazing to be a part of that. And yeah, those pictures are awesome.
Yeah. And
so there's Gustavo Lorgia, and that's Daniel and Andres.
Yeah. So what I think it's amazing that this happened, right? This is a high-end magic show that people go, right? This is a place in the city that's 2 hours away by bus or by car from Paraíso, where the classes are taught. So the whole surroundings are different. We had to arrange for the kids to go in a van. It was the first time doing that. It was all a hassle.
Just getting, I remember the outfits for them. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
But that was the process.
And why do I have to dress differently, and what for? And they didn't really get or grasp what they were doing. This is a 600 and plus seat theater. And it was packed. So imagine you being a kid with 3 months into magic, and this is your first public show, right? It's super overwhelming, right? But it was amazing. And of course, this is you and me being there for support. And of course, Gustavo Lorgia saying, hey, here you have the spotlight, do something, right? And it was just so cool for you to have that opportunity, right? Getting, our most famous magician to give you that permission and giving the kids the spotlight for a second there and saying, hey, this is so cool, what you're doing for them. And it was so cool for you to be a part of it. It was wonderful. And seeing the part before, this is the part before. So this is backstage, right?
They were so nervous.
And they were, they were.
I was nervous for them.
Yeah. We were also freaking out.
Yeah.
And this is us before, right? Going through everything. And we're doing the ball and bass for a 600 seat theater, it's like, whoa. Right. So we have to play it big. And again, it's not, I love a quote that we came up with, and it's not the magic we do, it's what we do with magic, right? Because this is this moment, right? Many magicians won't have this opportunity, right? But many kids from their neighborhood will never have this opportunity. And for them to be there, it's such a challenge, right? That they had to overcome a bunch of things in a short amount of time to do this. And I just thought that it was just, wonderful that we got to experience that in the first, couple of months of the program. It was just, mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really set a powerful tone, I think, for the program. And obviously since then the program has continued to blossom, but I think that was a really pivotal moment for the program and really giving it a lot of spark to just evolve and blossom, and it did. And I know it generated, or go ahead, Tom.
I was just thinking of that 3-day camp that we had, and we did a show at the end of it.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Look, this is us. So
there it is. Yeah.
This is another moment that I would love to share with everyone right now. We're sharing a picture of us doing a little circle before we go inside where you were living there, right, Ryan?
Yes, I was renting a room from a family who lived in, that apartment building.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you were saying, Tom. This is that camp. This is the place where we were right before we were about to perform, right? And this is the performance there. So this was a pretty cool memory for me to relive through these pictures because it was wonderful seeing Tom and Ryan doing this performance with and for the kids, right? So the audience was mostly made up of their parents. So it was the first time that the kids' parents were going to go see them perform. And it was so cool that you actually, Ryan, you set everything up. So I don't know if you want to share something else about this experience.
The parents were so proud of their kids. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I think that was a highlight for me too. Was just seeing the amazement on the parents' eyes, like, yeah, that's my kid, and holy crap, because by this point we've been practicing magic for almost a year, and so they had some skills, and I think the parents were blown away both, and kind of had the opportunity to see their children in a way that they've probably never seen them before.
And
that was really powerful.
Gustavo,
yes.
Right in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah,
and he brought those presents for the kids.
Yeah, it was so cool because we saw that wow factor that Kathy is just highlighting now. And yeah, we were amazed. And in this picture, there's Gustavo Lorgia. There's another friend of the program, Jorge, who was helping us prepare the kids. And it was so cool that we got that. They got to be on a show of their own, and they did a wonderful show. We had Gustavo returning the favor, right? And that was so cool. But first Gustavo got the kids there at his show, and now he was there at the kids' show, and he did the same. He did a performance in their show. They shared the spotlight with him, and I think it was just so wonderful that we got to experience that.
Yeah,
I never really thought about it in that way, and I really like that, the full circle of the show that the kids were highlighted in. That was Gustavo's show early in the year that we just spoke about, Ilusión. And now here, this was the kids' show, and Gustavo came as a invited performer in that show. I mean, it's pretty amazing of him to come to that.
Yeah.
And
he was sitting in the back row, the last row, watching the kids. And then one of us got up there and said, and now we have one more performer. And people not from Colombia who are watching this, it really was like you would stand up there at this little kids camp and say, and now we'd like to introduce David Copperfield to come up and do it. He has that kind of prestige in Colombia. And for him to come up and I still remember what he did. He did that amazing knots off.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yep.
Fantastic. But anyway, that was a wonderful, wonderful day or weekend, a whole 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was wonderful. It was the first experience outside of their neighborhood doing magic, all of them as a group, and us, advertising the show and trying to get as many people as we could to the show. It was just
and
so
before
wonderful.
That circle, I don't know, you guys probably remember it, but before that wonderful, happy-looking circle out there, for about 3 hours, the whole damn thing fell apart. I mean, the kids were just terrible, and they were panicked, and they were annoyed with each other, and it was just like theater, like the dress rehearsal. It just is awful. And
They
if
were
it's
storming.
not awful, the performance is going to be awful. It was just like, oh, this is not going to happen. Do you remember that? I mean, we were in a panic.
We were. We really were.
We were in a panic, and I don't know if you remember what happened, Ryan, with you walking through a glass door. Do you remember that?
Yes. I forgot about that. That was like right in the middle of the story.
Exactly. Everything was falling apart, and then
Literally.
Ryan was coming in or going out the rehearsal space, and it was a glass door. And Ryan decided to go through the glass door.
He thought he was Houdini.
Oh God! And all the glass shattered.
Just everywhere.
And we're like, this cannot be happening. And
We
I
had
was,
a whole audience about to arrive.
Oh,
Lorgia is about to arrive, and these kids were just awful. It was just,
yeah.
and then it all came together. It was amazing.
Yes, it was so like literally the calm before the
Storm, or
storm.
the storm before the calm.
Yeah, the other way around, right? Yeah, so the storm, everything was going wrong. We didn't know what was going to happen, but then the kids, and I remember, and this is something that amazes me to this day. Every time the kids, wherever we go, or on wherever we have our education chapters, when they have to perform, it's like, a switch goes on in them, and it's like, okay, I have to perform, and they transform, and now they're on stage, and it's like, look at me, and they do such a wonderful job that if you were an outsider, right, looking looking through all this mess, right, this is not supposed to happen. Like the kids are. You're telling me that these kids are going to put on a good show in 15 minutes, and it's like, yeah, and it happens, and it was such a good idea. It was such a good show. I mean, we had a blast. Kathy is asking if do we have the tape of the performance. We have some tapes of some performances. I don't know if we have a tape of this performance in particular, but we'll put in a link right now on our YouTube channel where you can definitely find some performances. But
I remember Edwin that night. He was just a riot. He just found this character, and his mother was in the audience. Just, who is this? She was just astonished by him. If I'm remembering that correctly.
You are absolutely. And Edwin was one of our students who was more introverted than most.
Really?
And just really kept to himself. And
he was
hysterical on the stage. I don't remember, but
he was this little nerdy guy who I'm sure got teased at school and was so inside himself, but he came, oh my God, he was amazing that night. He was just,
he really was. That's what magic does. It transforms.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, we could go on for hours. We have this show for just 1 hour. So before we leave, I just wanted to ask you some questions, Ryan, to end this segment today. And of course, ask you if you're interested in coming back and do this again, because we have so many subjects to talk about with you.
We do.
So we haven't touched India or El Salvador.
Yeah. More to come. Let's make it happen.
Speaking of India, I just want to say to Sonia and Priti and whoever else may be watching from India, Diwali is about to happen in India, and I just want to wish everyone connected to me and Magicians Without Borders happy Diwali. And I'm sure many of you remember Ryan, and we'll talk about those days some other time.
Oh,
Absolutely.
of course. So cool. So Ryan, to finish up, two questions. So from this year experience in Bogota, right? Uh, what do you think are your main takeaways? I will tell you mine, right? And then you'll tell me yours. And I think mine is this one, right? This is in my parents' house actually, and
With the cats.
and I had just had a terrible motorcycle accident. My hand was shattered, and you know all the stress that puts on a magician, right? You try, having your hand. It was my finger, and my
To
I
be
don't remember.
truly sleight of hand, yeah.
Yeah, and but that was that. Like I had found this organization, and you were handing the baton to me, so that was a highlight for me, definitely of your stay, of a
That's
year
wonderful.
a year long stay in Bogota. So this is for people that are listening to the podcast. This is a picture of Ryan handing me a magic wand as a passing of the baton. So that was my biggest takeaway of your year there. But you were actually the one that was visiting. So what was your highlight of that year?
Well, I think we hit on really, the big highlights from Illusion and working with the kids and performing at the hospital. I'd say were my big highlights. In terms of takeaway, I think this year taught me so much about life and about magic. Most importantly, I think it taught me that anything is possible. I mean, just you've heard some of those stories and how our program unfolded here is, it's unremarkable. And I'm just so thankful for the both of you and for our students and the opportunities that we had to build something incredible in Colombia.
Yeah.
And so I think, to leave it that anything is possible with patience, passion, and persistence.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
anything else you want to ask him, Tom, before we leave and we ask the last question?
No, not right now. Just I'm so grateful for both of you, but tonight especially you, Ryan, that you've given with such passion to Magicians Without Borders. And I have a feeling you're going to be connected to Magicians Without Borders in many ways for the rest of your life. So
Absolutely. Count on that.
okay.
So cool. So Ryan, before you go, do you think Ryan is a different person because of the experience of Magicians Without Borders? And if so, in what way?
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think my experience with Magicians Without Borders have taught me a lot about perseverance and stick-to-itiveness. There were numerous moments of crisis of faith. I kind of touched on one of those, riding that bus up the windy road to Paraiso for the first time. But, that was one of many moments of crisis of faith. And I think we all have those moments of crisis of faith throughout our lifetime. And those are really pivotal moments where we're faced with an opportunity, fork in the road. Do we stick with what we're doing or do we change direction? And I think my experience with Magicians Without Borders taught me to really trust my inner knowing and kind of my calling, and to that stick-to-itiveness to see my dreams come to life. And good things take time and take commitment, and this has definitely been one of those things for me. Probably one of the most formative and important years in my life. And I think it's taught me a lot about compassion and empathy and understanding people who come from a different background from me. And I think that's played a huge role in my growth as a physician.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Wonderful. I think we can end on that note for today. Ryan, we love you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Hopefully we can do this another episode in the near future. We love you, man. Thank you for being here.
And
Thank you so.
good luck with your continued medical education as a resident, and happy Veterans Day. You're working
Oh, thank you.
in a VA hospital, so happy Veterans Day. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I love the both of you, and this has been so much fun reminiscing and sharing stories, and there are so many more stories to share. And also so many more stories that we have yet to make. So I'm excited about all of that.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Thank you. We love you. Yeah.
Thank you,
I love
Ryan. We
you
love
both
you
so much.
Thank you for connecting me to Magicians Without Borders. One of the best things that ever happened to me. So thank you so much. And everyone will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye, Tom. Bye-bye, Ryan.
Bye-bye.
Take care, all. Thanks for joining us.
Everybody.